Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Reddest Beard Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Martin. This is the second part of the interview I did with my buddy, the Nickest Nick, aka Nick Lappen, talking about what it was like to live abroad, our trip to Indonesia for Christmas one year, and then just kind of overall life in China. Also, he sets the story straight from his perspective about that time that I got him drunk and convinced him to move there. So, to finish out the interview, check out the rest of this episode. But first, message from my sponsor.
And I'm getting a tattoo finally.
And I remember thinking like, wow, that's a really intricate tattoo. That's really complicated. And then I realized like the ink was running up his arm and like wrapping around his arm and spreading out around the rest of his body in like a, in a really weird pattern. And I was thinking, all right, tattoos don't normally do that, right? Like, I think at this
and the best part is I'm sitting there like under the needle, the guy's doing the thing, and I'm just like, hey man, it's been like 40 minutes or something. You feeling anything? And you're like, no. But then you actually started having that running narrative out loud where you're like, hey, the ink's like running up your arm and stuff, dude. I'm not sure that that's supposed to do that. These things might be working.
Yeah, I mean, I had no tattoos at that point too. So when I first started to notice it, I was like, wait, tattoo ink doesn't run like that, right? Like that'd be a really sloppy, difficult way to tattoo people. But yeah, so that was how I knew the shrooms were working. And this was Christmas Eve. So I had gotten a Santa Claus hat from somewhere. Yeah. I'm not sure where. I don't really remember. But I'd also been listening.
Well, you had been obsessively listening to Kanye's Christmas album.
No, it wasn't Kanye. It wasn't really Kanye. It was like these guys.
Oh, right.
LA made like a Kanye impersonator album called Creasus. That was like
it.
Christmas themed covers of all the tracks from Yeezus, and I was listening to that on repeat for like 3 days straight, and so I think I'd gotten it into my, hallucinogenic, addled mind that I'm going to be Santa Claus this Christmas. I was going to turn into Santa Claus somehow with this hat. And
you were legitimately walking around quoting the parody song, I Am a Claus.
Yeah, well, I was a Claus for Christmas. But I do remember this part pretty clearly. We were walking down the street there, and there were these two girls standing in the middle of the road, and one of them was having like a borderline tantrum. I remember.
Oh, she was throwing a fit.
I remember her being like, what the fuck? Everyone's getting Santa Claus hats and I don't have a Santa Claus hat. It's Christmas. This is bullshit. And like just really upset that she didn't have a Santa Claus hat. And I remember in my, my tripping state thinking, well, this is my chance to make somebody's Christmas. I'm going to make this girl's Christmas so hard that I'm going to become Santa Claus. I'm going to become Saint Nick, the spirit of Christmas. And I just took my Santa Claus hat off my head, put it on her head, and kept walking thinking, boom, mission accomplished. I have become Father Christmas. Christmas is
and now
done. It's perfect.
For you folks at home, again, he was tripping sack. So he was actually saying all of this out loud. Like as he was walking by this girl, he was just like, I am going to become the spirit of Christmas. I am going to give her this hat. Like he's talking to himself as he's doing it.
I don't even remember talking to myself about that.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
the effects of mushrooms, I guess. But anyways, after that, I was like, all right, mission, beeline to the beach. Got to get in this ocean, got to feel wet.
Yeah. You like to get wet, Nick?
Yeah,
that's not what that means. Okay, but funny story. I actually still talk to one of those girls.
Oh no!
Like 2 months ago, I got a random Facebook message from Joey, and she was just like, "Hey, Red, do you remember me?" And I was like, "No shit, I met you on a beach in Gili, fucking almost 5 years ago." And she's like, "Yeah, what's going on? How's the pandemic?" So caught up with her after 5 years.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't talk to anyone I don't talk to anyone at all really, except you and like 4 other people. So I
was surprised. I definitely did not see that coming.
Yeah, that's cool though.
And then we fucked off after we spent a couple days. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to say. Do you remember how we got woken up the first morning?
No, I don't.
We were in a hotel that like everything on Gili is like 2 stories max, right? And we were on the second floor of this hotel that was right next to a mosque. And there was the minaret where the guy was doing call to prayer. And at like 5 o'clock in the morning, all we hear, like there'd been thunderstorms all night, so we had both been sleeping like shit. But then the first thing that we just hear is the thundering voice of God himself in through the window. And then we open up and we realize that the minaret is maybe like 20 meters away from our window. And
Yeah,
like that was the introduction to the island.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Because like Bali is the big, tourist destination in that area, and like that's, I think the majority religion there, the main religion there is, what is it, Buddhism or Hinduism, or something? I don't know. It's not.
Hinduism on Bali.
Yeah, it's not. It's not Islam though, right? So, you know, but it's one island over is Lombok and Gili, and Islam is the main religion there, and so it was, yeah, unexpected. But I mean, we had both just been in Israel for the summer previously, so we were probably somewhat used to it at that point.
Oh yeah, like it wasn't anything that we hadn't heard before. It was just one of those unexpected, like we've been traveling for like 30 hours. We finally get to the hotel. We're finally like getting our beauty sleep. We're like, yeah, we're gonna go like party on Christmas over to Bali. Um, and then tattoos on Bali,
Yeah,
and you drank gasoline.
yeah, it wasn't gasoline; it was palm
It
wine.
was gasoline.
It
It
was
was
in a
gasoline.
canister, but it was palm wine.
It was in the gas can. It was gas.
Yeah, so yeah, that was Christmas Eve, and then Christmas morning, you and I caught a boat over to Bali, I think.
You did not fare well on that boat ride.
No, no,
You were very unhappy with that thing.
yeah, that boat ride was rough as fuck, man. I thought I was gonna puke. Um, but when we got over to Bali, yeah, you wanted to get another tattoo. You wanted to go what, 2 for 2, 2 days in a row, 2 tattoos. Uh,
Well, and it didn't help that I realized that it was like 100,000 rupiah to every dollar. So when we hit the ATMs, it was like, do I want 1,000,000 rupiah for 100 USD? And I was like, of course I want that.
yeah,
And
right.
so then like for tattoos, they're like, oh, it's a 500,000. And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, right. That's always a fun thing when countries have like, 100,000. When you're spending money in 100,000s because that's their currency, like you feel like a baller, and then you realize like, yeah, no, wait, I'm still broke. I still
Yeah.
have $50 here, but it's just measured
Right.
out
Like this,
hundreds of thousands instead of dollars.
yeah, this $50 is legitimately all I have. I'm just really lucky that this kebab only cost 13 cents.
Yeah, but yeah, so you found a tattoo place right near the hotel, and was you went to get your tattoo, and the guys in the shop, like who weren't actively tattooing anyone, were hanging out front, uh, like just smoking and eating and drinking, and yeah, I ended up getting drunk on palm wine. They're like homemade hooch that they, brewed themselves and kept in a gasoline canister, like a red gasoline can. Um,
Like a legitimate, like a stereotypical gas canister.
yeah, no, that was good stuff though. I had a good time.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
got fucked up off that too.
yeah, no, I know. I remember because I ended up agreeing to let them tattoo me.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that
The
tattoo.
Bali girl.
Yeah, that tattoo sucks, by the way, right? Like it was cool when I got it. I really liked it when I got it, but now, like what, 5 years later, it's like bled and blurred out, and the line work is really sloppy and just like it's falling apart. Like I was actually looking into the other day going somewhere to try to get it touched up or covered up or something. And Reina hates it too. She fucking despises it. So
Oh, well, because you've got like a sexy Bali dancer girl on your thigh, and I can't imagine why your girlfriend wouldn't love that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking about getting it turned into a mermaid, and because she loves mermaids and shit. So
Oh, that's fair. You
see
could totally pull that off.
thigh and have him write Reina underneath it or something.
All right, so in that like 3 or 4 month period, I got you drunk, convinced you to move to from Israel to China. Then we
Yeah,
were
back to that.
taken to a waterfall,
Can I
and
just
then
can I
like,
just address that because I
oh,
heard the
you want to talk
story.
about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, well, it's not an elephant, but I heard the story, the podcast about you convincing me to
The
move.
real story, the only true story.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And the only qualm I have with that podcast, that story, is that my concern over moving to China was not, oh no, I have a job and a life in America that I don't want to give up, because I had just moved to Israel for the summer from South America. I'd barely been in the States for like 3 weeks when I set off to Israel to do the program with you. And I
Okay, valid point.
thrown away my life in the United States 4 times over at that point, planning dumb trips outside the country for months or years at a time. So like it wasn't that I was worried about. It was that I had been to China before. I had seen Beijing and I had thought, wow, Beijing fucking sucks and I will kill myself if I have to live here. And so that's what I was thinking about when when the offer to move to China came in. I was thinking, oh God, Beijing, that's where. And to be fair, like I've since been back to Beijing. I'm still not a huge fan, but I definitely realized there's way more to offer there and way more cool stuff going on there than I thought at the time when I was so adamant about not living there. When this whole thing
Sure.
about moving to China came up, but I had never heard of Guiyang. I knew nothing about Guizhou, or even that there was anything out there in that part of China. So I was just kind of ignorant of the what I was getting myself into. But yeah, my qualm was not, oh no, my job in America, my shitty paid internship basically. It was more, uh, I don't want to live in a place where you can barely see the sun through the pollution.
Fair, fair. And I had like, as I said in that episode, like I didn't even know how to say hello in Chinese, right? Like when I went back to the States for those 2 weeks, one of my buddies was like, "Oh, you're moving to China? Cool. Ni hao." And I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Dude, it's how you say hello." And I was like, "I'm so fucked."
Yeah,
Right? But did it anyway.
one of my buddies
But
from high school, his adopted sister is Chinese, and his parents did Peace Corps in China, and he took Mandarin in university as part of, I think, a minor or maybe his major or something. So he was trying to give me a crash course on Chinese when I had that like week long time in the States between Israel and moving to China. And I remember the only thing that stuck with me was "What's
oh right, like the most important phrase. Which also, from Drunk Taxi Driver, that one, I had to translate it as like, "Oh well, fuck," and it was literally just that old dude screaming like, "Oh, what's out?" when he realized that like I was a giant sitting in the car next to him.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I had never been to Beijing, and the only time I've been to Beijing was during smoky season. It was like the end of winter, like it wasn't quite spring yet, and AQI was something like 250 or 260 that entire week. Right. So if I just went off that one experience of Beijing, like, yeah, like it was a nice city, like to walk around and see so much shit. And I saw a bunch of the tourist stuff and it was cool, but like I felt like I chain smoked 3 cartons of cigarettes every day the entire time I was there.
yeah.
Like the air quality was just miserable.
I mean, and that's the thing. I know some, especially if there's anyone like Chinese people or expats who lived in Beijing listening, they're gonna be like, "Fuck you, dude. Beijing is awesome," and like I'm sure it is, but it just wasn't for me. Like
Right.
I've been back since, and I gotta say, Beijing has a great, like as a bartender, they have a great bar scene. There's a lot of really cool bars there, doing cool stuff like cocktail wise, and food wise and culture wise. There's so much stuff there. So I don't mean to denigrate the city. I just mean that when I went there, my experience there, I was there briefly. It was smoggy all the time. Uh, I didn't know anything cool. I was there alone with no one to show me the ropes or show me anything, fun. So I went to some shitty clubs and got drunk on some shitty booze and just basically didn't have that great a time. But since then, going back, I've had a pretty solid and fun time there. You can go out to like the Great Wall, some of the like not the recreated Great Wall, but some of the less touched parts of the Great Wall that you can go out and visit if you do those those trips. Those are pretty cool. And yeah, there's some other good stuff there. So I don't mean to shit on Beijing. It's not a blanket statement that it's a bad city. It's just that at the time I was afraid to move to China because my entire experience with the country had been, a brief trip to Beijing that was pretty negative. So that's all.
Fair. That's fair. And if I were to go by like American media, I would not have moved, right? Because like there's not that many great things about it. Like China is kind of like Mexico in that when you see it in movies, it's always in like sepia tone to convince you that it's bad, right? So if I had just gone by one or two experiences or those things, I wouldn't have gone either. So I'm actually really glad that we both did, and like we kind of got over that.
Yeah, man.
But the Scottish Allens were definitely to blame. They were enablers, like motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were fun though. They were cool guys.
Oh yeah, no, I still hope one day to run into them. Like I kind of hope that one day we'll go back to the Nof and they'll just still be sitting there drinking, and we can regale them with all the tales of the weird shit we've done in the subsequent 5 years.
I mean, that would be dope, but I think both of us have been back to the Nof enough times since then to know that if they were coming back, we'd have seen them, They're probably
Fair.
they're probably off on other jobs in other places or retired back in Scotland or something at this point.
It'd be weird if it was like a video game where we just have to do the right amount of things abroad to unlock the point where they go back and we see them again.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's all we're going to do for today. There's plenty more that we could talk about. I think we just spent about an hour talking about only the first 2 months of like the weird shit it was to live in China for the first time. So I'm sure I would love to have you back again to talk more about this if you have some time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anytime.
Cool. Well, thank you for being on the show. And you said that you were considering starting your own podcast, right?
Yeah, it's something I'm working on. I haven't, ironed out all the kinks yet, but the idea would be to interview bartenders and service industry workers, around the world, mostly in the U.S., but I would definitely want to expand it to the rest of the world as quickly as I could. And yeah, just kind of get, people's stories about bartending, stuff that, they think is important about bartending. And, I run my Instagram page is all focused on cocktails and bartending as well. So it kind of tie in with that. But I'd like to, kind of, it's actually kind of selfish. What I really want is to interview the best bartenders so that I can learn from them and get better. But when you like message someone on Instagram and just go, hey, can I interview you? They usually go like, yeah, for what? And if you just go for me, because I want to know, then they go, well, fuck off. Don't waste my time, dude. So I kind of thought, all right, well, if I have a podcast with like a catchy name and some, decent intro music, then like it'll make me more legit and I can actually pick some of these bartenders' brains and kind of figure out like what are the trends, where are things going, who's on the cutting edge of bartending, and also just who's not, who's just a regular bartender, living their life, but what is that like, so it's much easier to get access to that if I have a podcast than it is if I'm just some dude who's fucking, trying to Skype you for no reason.
That's fair. I mean, like that's legit. It's one of the things that I do now is when people are like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a podcaster. They're like, about what? I was like, storytelling. They're like, oh, I'd love to talk to you. And I was like, cool. Like that's an automatic intro of like just stuff to talk about. Whereas before I'd have to be like, hi, I'm Sean. I teach English online and I don't really have a social life. But now it's like an automatic intro into like actually meeting people and having something to talk about. Though I do feel vaguely like that one character in Rick and Morty where it's like every time I show up, I'm like, hey, can I interest you in making an app? Right. But it's just like, hey, you want to make a podcast? Right.
Well, I thought millennials, if you turn 29 as a millennial and you don't have a podcast, I was under the impression that the government issued one because every millennial I know has a podcast at this point. And I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to get mine sooner rather than later. I might as well start it myself before they give it to me.
All right, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time. Keep a lookout for your stuff and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, well, that was it for the interview with Nick. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope maybe you got a little bit more insight into what my life was like that first year out and abroad in China. doing some of the traveling around and got to hear some perspectives on things from another person who's traveled to way more countries than I have and seen a lot more of the world. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like it, share it. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, Anchor, Spotify, whatever service you use to listen to this. Give it a like, share it around. The more you share, the more it helps me. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time on Tales from the Reddest Beard.